Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week we are continuing our coverage of the original Xbox. So last week we started talking about the Xbox, we talked about the launch, we talked about some launch titles, but now we're going to talk about the most significant launch title, and I think Mike has some special feelings about this game.
Yeah, this is the crown jewel of launch titles for the Xbox. It is, of course, Halo Combat Evolved. I don't think Xbox would have even competed if it wasn't for this game.
Nope, I don't think so either.
This is the whole reason that the Xbox competes now. This is great. So, originally, it was announced as a real-time strategy game for Mac, which I had no idea was a thing.
Yeah, Bungie was traditionally a Mac developer. They made the Marathon games, they kind of competed with Doom in that sense, but they were Mac-only games. Like, all their stuff was Mac at the time.
That's so cool. It pivoted to being a third-person shooter before Bungie was purchased by Microsoft, and they told them to make it as an exclusive for the Xbox.
Whoever made that decision, that was the best decision that was ever made for the Xbox, probably.
Oh, yeah, mad props. You're the greatest. So I think this was probably the greatest Xbox-related decision Microsoft has ever made. And without Halo, there would be no Xbox. Like, this is the title that made people be like, oh, I should get an Xbox. It made me get an Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a friend's house, actually, and he had Halo, and we did the LAN party thing with another guy who had an Xbox, and that just was like, oh, I need to get into this. This is amazing. So in a world where your choice is two industry juggernauts with proven track records or the new guy who only has the record of making Office software, I think like Xbox would have lost if it wasn't for Halo. And Halo was truly something different. Like, sure, we'd all played like GoldenEye on N64 and maybe like some FPS games that were like terrible on console, like trying to think of some really bad ones. There were some bad ones though.
Daikatana.
Oh yeah, that's a bad one. There was that's too. Maybe that's right at the right time. There was they tried to make a first-person shooter for, I believe it was Game Boy Advance, called X versus Sever.
Yeah, that was a movie that came out that had like a couple of really weird video games that came out for it too, right?
Yeah, and they were really trying. And I remember playing that because I got really into GoldenEye, and so I got X versus Sever, and I'm like, oh, not every game in this genre is as good as GoldenEye. And that's what made me kind of fearful. But Halo, it could hang. Like, it could hang with anybody. It was an amazing game, and it kind of reinvigorated this whole competitive shooter genre that probably was already going on with Counter-Strike, but it had not been on console yet, you know, and it was all about that for the Xbox. And I kind of want to talk about it because Halo 1, or Halo Combat Evolved, had some great stuff going for it. And to me, not just the multiplayer, but that is one of the most solid campaigns of any game I have ever played. Like, the Truth and Reconciliation is an amazing level in any game because you get like the night vision scope and stuff where you hit the black button, I think, because it had the black and white buttons on the original Xbox controller, and that would turn on the night vision scope. But also, the Silent Cartographer is probably my favorite mission in a video game, like first-person shooter style game.
Yeah, that level was awesome. I remember that was the one that was included on the demo for PC. Was the Silent Cartographer, and I played it over and over and over because when you're a kid and you only have demos for PC games, you only get one level, you play them over and over and over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I must have played the first level of Metal Gear Solid 1 on my PlayStation demo disc like 6 or 7 times easily, if not more. So not really understanding what the little box like exclamation point means, you know? I didn't really get that. But for me, my favorite Halo 1 level was Hang 'em High. Do you remember that level?
That was a multiplayer level?
Yeah, it was a multiplayer level, and it had like a bunch of these like diving board looking things and really skinny sky bridges that would go across and above the map. It was so fun, and it was just like a pistol and sniper rifle fest. It's the whole thing. It was the whole thing about it. Because Halo 1, the dream was to get the shotgun and the sniper. Yeah. I feel like that was like, because you got the close range and the long range. But, oh boy, even that Halo pistol, like, because they kind of knew the game was broken. Like, the pistol is the best weapon in the whole game, but it still doesn't matter because it's still about aiming, you know, like having good aim and knowing the levels. But I just love the original Halo. And I got it on PC, and on PC, they had an amazing level called Timber. That was like this forest level, or Timberland. I want to say Timberland, but that's also a rapper, so I could be just making that up. Or a pair of boots. You know, it could be either one of those three. I have no idea, but
sponsored
really
by
fun.
Both the boot company and the rapper. this level was on the
that's
PC
their
version
level.
of Halo.
You're actually, if you look down at your feet, your guy was wearing Timberland boots. Your Spartan had
And the
Timberland boots on.
soundtrack was a Timbaland song.
Oh yeah, it was the Timberland song with the Fray. It was that combination of How to Save a Life or whatever it was. It was a really weird mood to a level.
The thing that I loved about Halo that made it so different for me was the controls were good. It wasn't the first game to do like a dual stick setup. Like you could even do dual stick on Perfect Dark if you had two N64 controllers. There was a control scheme that let you like use both controllers to control in a Halo style. There were a few other games that did that, like on PS2. But for me, as a person who was primarily a PC gamer at that point in time, especially when it came to first-person shooters, like the like keyboard being on your left joystick and the mouse being the right joystick, like instantly made sense in my brain. And so I was able to like jump right in, and it felt good to play, even though, I mean, I still advocate for the superiority of mouse and keyboard over controller. Halo truly felt good to play, and the multiplayer was fun on its own, but the way it had 4-player split screen and you could do it in any combination of up to 16 players with, if you had multiple Xboxes, up to 4 people on each Xbox, meant you could have 4 Xboxes with 4 players on each one, and you could like do team battles, you could have tournaments. Like there was so much stuff going on there that made it so much fun to play. And it was one of those games that like itself didn't really do anything new, but it took all the best things of all these other first-person shooters, polished it up, put it into one game, and just felt so well done, the whole package. It was just the total package for me. Love Halo.
Oh, yeah, so good. Also, the B button for Melee, which now it feels really awkward because you always click in the stick, but back then it just felt so good.
Yeah.
I couldn't really explain. Like, it just made sense. It just worked. And, yeah, I think I am going to say something that's going to make me in a lot of hot water probably with some listeners, but I like Halo 1 more than Halo 2. I think with the story-wise and with the pistol, and I know there's a beam sword. I know it's got an amazing like story. We're going to talk about that later. But
dual wielding?
That's true. The dual wielding the needler and just melting everything.
Yeah.
It just feels right. I don't know. You know what? Now I'm backing out on it. Look how quickly I cower in my own opinions.
Your convictions are not strong on your
No.
love of
Because I just love
which
Halo.
Halo is your favorite?
Which Halo is my favorite? I will say I think my favorite of all time, I think 3 really nailed it.
Yeah.
Like as far as multiplayer goes, 3 really nailed it. I still just have a big soft spot in my heart for that Halo 1 campaign though.
Yeah. It's really great. And the 360 remake, it's also on the Master Chief Collection on Xbox One. Really, really well done. And it's fun that you can like switch between new awesome graphics and like old bad graphics. Because it's like, but in playing the remake, you're playing it and you go, this looks pretty good. This is pretty close to what old Halo looks like. This is what I remember it looking like. And then you switch back to old graphics and you're like, oh, wow. Yeah, I'm just going to keep it on the new graphics then, please.
Oh, yeah. I still think I really liked, even though Master Chief Collection was screwed up with multiplayer when it came out, I played so much of the single player anyway, because that's why I got it. I kind of just wanted to play the redone versions of Halo 1 and Halo 2. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, it was totally worth it. And now it's fixed. There's just no population on it, but it's still fixed. you know?
I'm holding out for a PC release of Master Chief Collection.
Oh, it's got to come out. It has to, because now they're kind of Microsoft's merging PC and console with their whole Game Pass and cross-platform thing. It's got to happen. But do you want to talk about Xbox Live, speaking of which?
Yes, speaking of which, the
accidental segues.
Yeah, well, the first Halo game did not have Xbox Live compatibility because even though the Xbox launched with networking capabilities, it would take a full year to realize its full potential. So at this point in time, there had been several experiments in online gaming on consoles. PC was like far and away like ahead of the game when it came to online stuff, mostly because people who played on PC didn't really have a problem with tinkering with various like online services, and they already had an online service because PCs was just, they had a lot of other uses for online services, but consoles had always kind of shied away from it, partly because I think it was hard to set up on a PC, and on consoles, the allure of playing on console is kind of this like set it and forget it mentality where you just pop in the game, you turn it on, and it just work. Well, at this point in time, online didn't just work, and it wouldn't just work for a long time. So there are a few services that were tried for the consoles in the 90s, the most popular of which, and I use the term popular loosely, was a service called X-Band, which it was kind of like a Game Genie in that it like sat between the game cartridge and your Sega Genesis or Super Nintendo and hooked up to a phone line, and then it would like let you play these games online. It had a limited amount of games that it was compatible with, like there were some good games like Mortal Kombat you could play online. I think you could play Super Mario Kart online too. It was neat, but those games really weren't designed for online play, and it wasn't very popular, especially because you had to pay a separate monthly fee. It had its own kind of ISP, so it was like $5 a month for 50 connections or $10 for unlimited connections.
I had never heard of that before.
Yeah, well, it wasn't very good, and it was buggy and just didn't really work that well. But it was like a neat idea.
Yeah, it's a very cool idea, and also seems way ahead of its time. But also, how stressful would it be to play Super Mario Kart online? Because that game is already so hard.
Yeah,
it's almost impossible.
I bet it was terrible. There were a few other systems like this that tried to get online gaming off the ground on consoles too, but they were all kind of just ahead of their time, and the demand just wasn't there. Even the Dreamcast, which had a modem included on every console, was pretty limited in its online capabilities. You could use either their ISP, SegaNet, or you could use a standard ISP as long as it used what's called point-to-point protocol, or PPP. AOL was not supported, so I was never able to play online in the Dreamcast heyday. But at the end of the day, you were still playing on dial-up, and most games just didn't really run very well on dial-up. It was a nice experiment, but Sega was once again kind of ahead of their time. So the PS2, which is a little bit more comparable to the Xbox at this time, the network adapter had come out in Japan by this time, by the time of Xbox Live. It came out in 2001, I think, but it wouldn't launch in North America until July of 2002, and it really wasn't that much better than what had came before it. You had to buy a new peripheral to make it work, which is always kind of a crapshoot. It didn't have a monthly fee, which was kind of neat and novel for the time, and it wouldn't have a monthly fee for a long time. But in November of 2002, exactly 1 year after the Xbox had launched, Xbox Live was released, and it was a revelation. Even though it had a subscription fee of, I think it was $50 a year when it first came out, it was miles ahead of what any other system offered at the time. So on PS2, every game had its own online service that was run by the developer. So that means your online ID, your friends list, all of that kind of stuff is unique to the game, and it didn't transfer over to other games. If you were lucky, some of the other games developed by the same company would interoperate. Like if you had a bunch of different EA sports games that went online, you could kind of use the same account between them, and it kind of worked that way. But overall, the experience was still really fragmented, which was not the case with Xbox Live. Players signed up one time, they had one online ID, which Microsoft called the gamer tag, and their friends list stayed consistent between all the games as well. So Microsoft was able to accomplish this by requiring games that went online on the Xbox to use Microsoft service. That's why you'll notice for the first couple of years of the EA Sports games on the Xbox, they don't have Xbox Live compatibility, even though they went online on PS2 and they had come out after Xbox Live was a thing. It's because EA did not want to play nice with Xbox and use all of the Xbox servers. So they just opted to not have online on their Xbox games, I think until the 2005 year of stuff, maybe 2004, I can't remember. So yeah, EA would eventually relent, but for a couple of years they didn't have online play. The other cool thing about Xbox Live was that the Xbox was able to take full advantage of that whopping 8 gigabytes of hard drive space. Games could have downloadable content that was substantial, like new levels, new missions, new characters. They could also have game updates that fixed bugs and added features. The 8 megabytes available on a PS2 memory card just didn't really allow for that kind of content. Like you could maybe download some rosters for your football game. Not a whole lot of games on Xbox would take advantage of that kind of stuff, but they could. I know Halo 2 had a lot of maps you could download. One of the cool things with the original Splinter Cell, if you connected online, you would kind of get a free mission that would download and you would save on the hard drive. Sony would eventually make a 40 gigabyte hard drive available on the PS2 for Final Fantasy XI, but that would be the only game in North America to support the hard drive, and there was still only just a couple in Japan that worked with the hard drive. And the killer app for Xbox Live was in 2004 when Halo 2 launched, because Halo had already this strong online not online, but like multiplayer sort of presence, and people were having tournaments and they were loving playing the multiplayer of the original Halo, but it never went online. And so when Microsoft said, hey, Halo 2 is going to be online and you're going to have Xbox Live to do it, it was like, rah! everybody went nuts. And Halo 2 had awesome online. It was very fun. I think we could do an entire episode on Xbox Live alone, because this is just the launch of Xbox Live. So we'll leave it here. Suffice it to say, Xbox Live was a game changer, and this and Halo were probably the largest effects the Xbox has had on the industry. I think both first-person shooters on consoles and on PCs would be very different without Halo, and I think online gaming just in general would be very different if Xbox Live had never existed. So
yeah, Xbox Live. Also, the one thing that Xbox Live, and I don't know if this is Xbox original or 360, they were the first to have like a party functionality.
Yeah,
which it's crazy to me that PlayStation, also PlayStation, when it had online, you had to have your own Bluetooth headset.
Yeah,
like they didn't come with it didn't come with the console. Like an Xbox 360 would come with a headset. So it's like, oh, they're encouraging you to use this online service.
Right.
Well,
and on PS2, it was a separate purchase, and it was like a really long USB cord that plugged into the PlayStation 2 itself, whereas the original Xbox headset was like plugged in the memory card port on the controller, so you didn't have to have like two cords. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so great. I actually never played Xbox Live on original Xbox. I jumped in at 360. Like that's when I kind of started making my own money so I could afford it. But I really it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah.
Total
voice chat. That's the other thing that Xbox Live had standardized, because a lot of games that went online before that, some would have voice chat, some wouldn't. It kind of depended on the game. But with Xbox Live, you knew you were getting voice chat every time, and you knew it was going to work well every time. And Microsoft included in their Xbox Live starter pack a microphone for every player, so you could be reasonably sure that anybody playing online has a microphone, which was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, the whole, because I mean now, like that's the way I talk to a lot of my friends now across the country, is we just like catch up on Xbox Live.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. That's a pretty. Like, it just kind of changed the whole way a phone call essentially works, especially with people of our age. You know, now we just like, oh, we caught up on Xbox. I actually remember coming back to Seattle after living in LA for a year and hanging out with my friend Barry, and he's like, yeah, I feel like we're all caught up because we play Xbox like every night. So
yeah,
it doesn't really matter. But now we got to go through the games by year of the Xbox original from 2001 to 2008.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to cover every single game, but I think we went through and sort of picked out some
hits.
Yeah. Some of the hits of every year.
So we've already talked about Halo and how amazing it is and how much I love it. Amped, snowboarding, and SSX Tricky competing snowboarding games, which I'm going to say it right now, I think SSX Tricky was the better game.
It depends on what you're looking for, because Amped was a much more realistic take on the genre. It was more like a 1080 snowboarding rather than than SSX was like, we're gonna do crazy tricks and flips and you're gonna have boosts and supers and it's gonna be great. And Amped was like
fun music.
Yeah, and fun music. SSX Tricky had a great soundtrack.
It's tricky.
Amped was a much more serious affair, and it was still good, but it was just different.
Yeah. And I also very much like my extreme sports games. Absolutely ridiculous. That's the way I enjoy it. But another game that came out in 2001 was Bloodwake, which I remember. It was like Twisted Metal with boats.
Yeah, the reason I put this on here is because I think Bloodwake had a pretty significant marketing campaign that I remember of being like, too. I think it was before they really knew Halo was the game to get on Xbox. I think they put kind of their money in this Bloodwake bin. And so there were a lot of Bloodwake commercials when there really should have been Halo commercials, but they hadn't quite figured it out yet.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that Halo really blew up because of essentially people playing the game. Like, it wasn't really, I feel like in the beginning it probably wasn't marketed as much as like the other games were.
Yeah, you know? I think people were excited for it because it looked neat when you played it or when it was shown off, but like that's really all it was, is it just looked neat. And so when Microsoft had to make a choice of what games to like sort of put their marketing budget for, I think they just skipped over Halo or didn't they? I just remember Bloodwake having a lot, so I think it was worth talking about.
It actually, some reviewers describe its gameplay as, quote, twisted metal on water. I'm looking at the Wikipedia article for it right now, so I'm like, nailed it.
Got him.
It was also a platinum hit game. I remember that.
Yeah.
The platinum hits were great. I was a big fan of the platinum hit series on Xbox original because it was like $20, I think, when they became platinum hits.
Yeah.
So, and it was done by Stormfront Studios.
Oh, that's an unfortunate name.
Yeah, and they also did, what other games did they do? I think they did they did Neverwinter Nights. And they did it looks like they've done a lot of stuff with D&D, essentially. Pre being bought by Wizards of the Coast, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, so they worked on a lot of stuff. Oh, they did the Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers game. I had that game.
I heard that game's awesome.
On PlayStation 2. Yeah, you do the Helm's Deep battle, and it's all about like making combos and stuff happen. It's a great game. Okay, moving on to the year 2002, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3.
We already talked about how much I love Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X, and 3 is great too. Not quite on the same level as 2X, just because
Does 3 have the cruise ship level?
Yes.
That's what I know.
And the
from.
revert.
Okay.
The revert was the biggest thing that Tony Hawk 3 had, was because you could finally string combos. Like after you landed a trick on a vert, you could revert and then like manual and then like keep your combo going. So you could have these like really long 1,000,000-point combos, which is really fun.
Like a real cool skater.
Yeah.
Next game I don't really know about is Blinks the Time Sweeper.
Yeah, it was a kind of an interesting game. The reason I put it on here is because it was, I think, one of Microsoft's kind of attempts at like a mascot platformer to like compete with the Crash Bandicoots and the Spyros and the Jak and Daxters of the world, like that kind of thing, to be like, oh, this is our mascot, it's Blinks. And it was like a kind of a platformer, but he could like reverse time. He was a cat that like had this machine that could reverse time.
Cat.
Yeah, it was like a kind of interesting. It didn't really. I don't think it had the effect that Microsoft wanted in becoming like the mascot for the platform, but they were throwing a lot of stuff at the walls to see what would stick at this point.
Was this their like Jak and Daxter? Was that
it was kind of what they were going for there.
Okay.
I didn't really get it. But speaking of just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, Jet Set Radio Future came out in 2002.
I remember this game. I never owned it, but I remember the trailers for it.
It's weird.
Commercials. It's a weird game.
It was a sequel to Jet Grind Radio on the Dreamcast, and it's like this cool cell shaded like rollerblading thing where you like spray paint on
tag
walls.
Stuff. Yeah,
and it has like a real weird soundtrack. It was very, very like that kind of weird style of game that sometimes comes out of Japan, but it was very fun. The next game that came out in 2002 was 007 Agent Under Fire.
I had that for original Xbox, and I played multiplayer a lot.
It was fun. That game was really fun. The neat thing about it history-wise is it was one of the games that you could use to mod your Xbox. If you downloaded a hacked save file from the internet and somehow got it onto your Xbox via like a USB drive or something, you could, if you loaded the save file, it would basically hack your Xbox for you and let you like mod your Xbox and do all the mod stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's a fun thing I need to mention real quick about Jet Set Radio Future? It got a 9.1 on IGN.
Wow.
Yeah, I did really well.
Pretty good.
I remember I played a lot of Agent Under Fire because I got the game hoping it was like GoldenEye. Like that's what I got. And it didn't disappoint. We played a lot of multiplayer on that because you could turn bots on and stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can get a lot out of that game. But the one thing I remember about that game is it had very strong auto aim.
Yeah.
Like if you were on a console and you put your thing even close to a guy's head, it would just zip your cursor right to the guy's head. So it was kind of easy mode turned on a little bit. Yeah, but I mean, as a kid, it was great. And I also felt really good at it. So in a way, it worked, you know?
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
The next game, can I talk about the next game?
You can talk about the next game.
I had it on Xbox. Morrowind. Elder Scrolls 3? 3, Morrowind. And this game, I know a lot of people didn't like it because the PC port is very clearly better. Like the people complain a lot about how the Xbox port was terrible, but it was still very playable. And this game is what got me into the very serious, long story, like single player RPG genre, essentially. Like you could turn this game on and just kind of forget. I mean, they drop you off in a town with like, I think you just steal everything out of the tutorial area so then you can sell it. That was the whole strategy. And then you were kind of just, all right, go out there. And I remember the game, it didn't have a map that you could like fast travel with. You had to use these mark and recall spells. So you'd like mark a dungeon when your inventory was full. And then you would walk out of the dungeon and walk to town and sell all your stuff. And then do the recall spell to zip you back to that dungeon. That's how they did fast travel.
Oh.
So you still had to go like one way. It's actually a lot like Red Dead Redemption's fast travel, Red Dead Redemption 2's fast travel, where it's definitely one way. Like it takes you to the place, but you still have to ride all the way back. It wasn't bad. But the other cool thing about Morrowind is it had levitation spells, and it had a lot of hidden stuff if you levitated. There was a lot of treasure you could only get to by levitating or flying, and your guy would just kind of walk in place. He kind of moonwalk, and your guy would just move slowly up this tall tower. It was really great. The game is fantastic. The story's really good. It did not hold your hand, and I did a lot of internet searching on Game Facts.
Game Facts. What a life.
Yeah, a lot of text guides, where they draw like the Morrowind symbol with the letter U or something like that. A lot of that.
Yeah, and the
a lot of Control F
at the top.
Yeah,
it's like graphics written in text.
A lot of Control F going on there.
Morrowind was interesting to me because I noticed a trend with a lot of Xbox games in that the Xbox version is the only console version of the game because it's been ported from PC. Like Morrowind, because of like we talked about last week, the similarities between a PC and an Xbox were so they were so great, the similarities, that it was easy, relatively speaking, to port a game from PC to Xbox. So a game like Morrowind existed on PC, probably would have been a PC exclusive, except the Xbox existed and was pretty easy to port to. No PS2 port, no GameCube port, just Xbox. The next game that I want to talk about is kind of similar. It's called Unreal Championship. And it wasn't a direct port of Unreal Tournament 2003. Like there were some differences for the Xbox, like they kind of rebranded it as Unreal Championship, but a lot of the maps were the same, a lot of the weapons were the same, a lot of the game modes were the same, but it was basically Unreal Tournament 2003 but for Xbox, and it's awesome, and I'm a big fan, and I'm pretty sure it's not backward compatible on Xbox One or Xbox 360, which is a real shame. That was a game that was also it came out and it had Xbox Live functionality, so it was like kind of a before Halo 2 came out, it was like one of the games to play on Xbox Live. It's kind of neat. It's worth checking out if you're an Unreal fan anyway.
Yeah, I never really got into the Unreal games.
They're fun.
Which is weird because that's like
shooters.
an engine. Like the engine is used in so much stuff.
Yeah.
The Unreal Engine, but...
Yeah. Next game on the list for 2002, Metal Gear Solid 2. Talked a lot about Metal Gear Solid. I love it. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out on Xbox. It was actually an enhanced version called Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance that had some extra goodies. That would later be released on PS2 also, all those extra goodies. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 2. Better than Agent Under Fire is...
007 Nightfire.
Yes. 007 Nightfire. Love that game. I played it as if it were GoldenEye on GameCube,
You know what?
though.
I'm going to ask you this. Did Nightfire have a snow level?
With the trams that goes between
Yes.
Yeah.
I confused Agent Under Fire with Nightfire's multiplayer mode. So
Oh.
Nightfire is the one I think I played multiplayer. I did have them both.
Yeah.
But I was
Nightfire
thinking
great.
about that snow level because that snow level was really fun. And I think in Nightfire, you also had like you could go into like some famous area, or was that in Agent Under? Oh, in one of the games, you would go to like famous areas from the old movies.
I don't remember.
I think it might have been Agent Under Fire. You went into like Fort Knox or something like that.
Oh,
which is where
Nightfire had a Fort Knox.
That
segment.
might be it.
I don't know. I
You
only
know
played
what?
Nightfire.
Yeah, but I just remember also you could unlock a lot of like it was like GoldenEye where you could unlock like Jaws and
Yeah.
Odd Job and what's the guy's name? Baron Samedi? I think that's his name. But I
I
never
don't
watched.
remember.
I think I know more about James Bond from the video games than I do from watching the movies because I haven't watched nearly as many movies as I have played the video games. I kind of wish they would do one that's actually good now, like kind of try to bring it back and really put some thought and care into it. Like
Yeah.
wait a year or two after the movie comes out to really make it a good one,
They did a
or
couple
combine
of,
movies together.
They did a couple of like GoldenEye games, and they did another one called Everything or Nothing that I think did okay. I have found that the games that are the with the exception of GoldenEye, of course, the games that are based on movies for James Bond are not as good as the games that are their own contained stories like Nightfire.
Yeah, they should make another one that's a contained story then, but have Daniel Craig in it.
Yeah.
Give him a
Yep.
game.
Yeah.
He deserves a game.
Two more PC ports on the list. Jedi Knight 2, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. Love that game. You play as Kyle Katarn. He's like a Jedi that's lost his powers, and it's like, he's a good guy, he's a bad guy. Really fun. Highly recommend it. And then Splinter Cell. Maybe we shouldn't say this as a PC port. I think it came out on Xbox first and then was ported to PC. And then later it would get ported to PS2 and GameCube, but it was pretty different actually on PS2 and GameCube. Like it was definitely a lot more work than the Xbox PC version. Those were the
This
same.
is one of those Xbox games, like franchises that I
Yeah.
completely missed the boat on.
Oh yeah, it was kind of an Xbox franchise too, at least at first, because it kind of had that same green and black aesthetic that the console had, and Microsoft really pushed it and marketed it. It was very fun. It had an extra downloadable level if you took it on online. That was cool.
Did they make a version of it for Xbox One? Did it come out as backwards compatible?
It was backward compatible on 360, and then they remade it in a trilogy on PS3.
Oh, there is one called, it says here, Splinter Cell Ultimate Edition for Xbox One. It's enhanced.
Oh.
Maybe I should replay them that way.
I played them.
I keep saying this,
kind
but
of
I
recently.
have so much stuff to play.
Yeah. I played the first 4 of them pretty recently. They hold up okay. They're fun, especially Chaos Theory, the third one, and then Double Agent. If you play the original Xbox version of Double Agent, it's a very different game from the 360 and PC version. It's very fun. It's different and better, in my opinion.
Okay. So now we're in the year 2003, and I don't know anything about the next game except we covered its prequel for, was it
Saturn?
Sega Saturn. That's right.
Panzer Dragoon Orta. It's just the next one in the Panzer Dragoon saga. I think it's interesting to talk about just because it continues that series, which was sort of a niche series on a niche console, on a more mainstream console. Ran it like a buttery smooth 60 FPS. It was a really cool rail shooter, but that's really all we need to say about it.
Yeah.
The next game I want to talk about is Phantasy Star Online, which we also talked about in the Dreamcast episode. But it was pretty neat because it went online and the Xbox, fully supported the online functions. What was interesting about it is you had to pay a monthly fee both for Phantasy Star Online and for Xbox Live if you wanted to play Phantasy Star Online. Something that Microsoft would not repeat when Final Fantasy XI came out on the Xbox 360. You could play that game online and not have an Xbox Live subscription.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
At least they realized their kerfuffle and they fixed it.
Having to pay triple subscription fees to play a game online because you have to pay your ISP, you have to pay Microsoft, and then you had to pay Sega to play Phantasy Star Online.
I'm going to make an online game where you have to pay the game fee, you have to pay your ISP, you have to pay Xbox, and then you have to pay your cat Toby.
Okay.
Like Toby dues is what we'll call them.
Is there a profit sharing model for Toby's owner? Because I would like to get in on that.
Yeah, I mean, you are essentially physically responsible for Toby's estate.
Right.
I think is how it should work, But I mean that those dues, 50% of it goes to wet food.
Right.
So
well,
I mean,
25% of those dues go to my annual Jaybird competition as well.
That's
so
a
we're
good point,
crowdfunding the Jaybird competition.
It is the Toby tournament, is what the Jaybird thing's called. So I mean that makes the most sense. It's the Toby Tournament Classic Edition is what it's called. And Jaybird's the only game, and each competitive match of Jaybird consists of 48 rounds. It's a very intense. It's more of an endurance competition, I would say.
Yeah.
Than an actual. It's not a sprint, okay? It's an endurance race.
It is a marathon for sure.
The next game we need to talk about, I'm going to let you go, but this is hands down one of my favorite games of all time.
What game is it?
KOTOR. Knights of the Old Republic.
Tell me more, Mike.
Tell you more?
Yeah.
Tell you more about it? Okay, I was going to let you talk about it because I know you love Star Wars, but I'm talking about it.
No, you love KOTOR way more than I do. I have played very little of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought you... Oh, man. I discovered these games in college. I didn't play them until college. And it's essentially like everything you'd want in a Star Wars game. Like it's not based on any of the movies. It's 100%... You're your own character, and it's kind of the story unfolds in a way that it's definitely tricking you. Like you think you're a really good guy, and I don't want to. I try not to do spoilers. You know what I mean? But highlights of the game: assembling your cool crew, and you got to have a droid in there. You get to build your own lightsaber, like the way an old Jedi would, because the whole thing takes place thousands of years before the Star Wars movies. Mm-hmm. So the Jedi are in full swing.
So an even longer time ago.
Oh yeah. There's a whole nother war, obviously, but you're actually fighting Sith, which is really cool. Because I don't think they really go into it as much, really, in like the modern games, like the modern, I guess you'd say modern movie age, like the age of the movies, the time period, doesn't really go into it. But this is where all your hardcore nerdisms go in, and you could just talk to everybody and get some lore. It felt like you were playing a book, but also there were some really cool skills and stuff you'd build up on too. And it was turn-based combat, and it was just, oh man, it was one of those games you get sucked in and you just were like blink and 6 hours had gone by and you realize you didn't get that far because you were just talking to everyone and trying to find everything.
Yeah.
It was definitely one of those games. But I think KOTOR and KOTOR 2 are some of the best like storytelling in a game, I would really say. Like
Super worth playing then.
Yeah, super worth playing. And it's crazy now too because they're ported to your phone, it's ported to Steam, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But playing it on Xbox really felt really cool. You know, we have a good friend Quinn, and I think it's his favorite video game. It's like what made him like video games is like a storytelling medium.
Oh man. What a great
It's a great game.
It was
Knights of the Old Republic.
Another example of a PC port. It came out on PC. I don't know if it came out before or at the same time, but it was one of those games that was not on PS2 or GameCube. It would later get ported to phones and like other stuff later, but it was like a PC Xbox kind of combo deal. My biggest memory with KOTOR is I went to PAX in 2000. This must have been 2007 or 2008 when they had a big room full of people for the Old Republic online. Remember that game?
Oh, yeah.
And they were like showing it off. They were going to show us a sweet new trailer because everybody was all excited for this game. And then after the trailer was over, they did this Oprah thing. And there was probably 1,000 people in this room. And they said, check under your chairs. And they were like, KOTOR's coming on to Steam. Also, everybody in this room gets a free copy. And there's like a thing under your chair with a code for a free copy of KOTOR.
Whoa.
Which was pretty neat and novel at the time because it was a pretty old game even then, but it's just like cool to get a free game when games weren't really free. Like I feel like that happens a lot more often now, but yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, it's so. Also, I want to mention this too. There was a game within a game. You could play Pazak, the card game, and gamble for credits.
All right,
it's really cool. Sometimes you just like log into it. I guess you wouldn't even say log. It wasn't online, but you just boot up on it and you just play Pazak for a couple hours. That's what I would do sometimes. So, got to get those credits. You know what I mean?
I do.
So great. I should replay these games because it's been so long that I don't entirely remember the story. Because I mean, it was like 2003, 2004, but boy, oh boy, these games were so great, and it was so fun to like talk about it with people. And the Sith bad guys in it were really cool. There was a guy who was so dark side evil that his whole body was held together with the Force. Wow. Like his hatred held him together physically. Oh, it's such a good game. I could talk about it. We got to keep going.
I know, we should probably keep going. I want to talk next about SSX3, the sequel to SSX Tricky and the original SSX that was only on PS2. SSX3, best snowboarding game of all time. Fight me. It's the best snowboarding game of all time. This is the hard stance. SSX3's best snowboarding game of all time. It took all the great stuff of the previous SSX games and then set the whole thing on one mountain, which is like kind of whatever. It's cool from a thematic perspective that everything's on one mountain. But the actual gameplay implication of this was that there was a mode where you could start at the very top of the mountain and you jumped out of a helicopter and you landed on top of the mountain and you could seamlessly snowboard through every single level in the game. And it took like half an hour to get to the bottom of the mountain if you did that. And it was really like just chill and super fun. And I am a huge SSX3 fan because of that. Like I used to just come home from school and like just snowboard down the mountain and like use that to sort of relax and decompress. And it had a really rockin' soundtrack too of like really top choice quality 2003 songs.
Whoa, you know what I'm reading right now? And I mean, this isn't, I haven't looked up the site. It's on Wikipedia and it's cited, so it's real. Everyone relax.
Yeah.
It says, the open-ended nature of the game SSX3 was influenced by Battlefield 1942 and NBA Street Volume 2, which were both EA games. Like, that's what gave them the idea to do it that way, which is a really cool, like, essentially it's like Tony Hawk's Free Skate, but you start at the top and you go all the way to the bottom.
Yeah.
And it probably takes you a little bit to
It takes like half an
all the
hour.
way down. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. You had to unlock all the levels to get there too. It's super fun. But yeah, it's the best snowboarding game of all time, and I will fight you on that.
Did they do a remake of this game at all or anything like that?
No, but it is Xbox One X enhanced. You can play it on your Xbox One.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is the best way to play it because it's all 4K and it runs at 60 FPS. It's awesome.
Did they have a multiplayer version of this game? Do you know? Could you like do that with friends? Could you like snowboard together?
I don't know if you could do the whole snowboard to the bottom together, but it definitely had a multiplayer mode, and it played online too, even on PS2. I remember trying to play it online on PS2 and like failing miserably. But like the Xbox version had online, GameCube obviously didn't. But yeah, it was super, super fun. Big fan.
That's really cool. I wish, by the way, I think these aren't on there, but I had them, and I just want to give a quick shout out to the NBA and NFL Street franchises because we don't have them on the list. I believe they came out in 2003, 2002, but really cool idea. So NFL Street was 7-on-7 football, so you had 3 up front linemen, and then everyone else was just offense. Really, it was just pure offense fun. And NBA Street was just amazing. Like, it was such a good game. NBA
It was like
Street,
the successor to NBA Jam, this like arcade.
yeah, exactly. Like, you're in a park and you're all pros still, and you're just playing. It's like, and there's just people watching. It just felt really cool. Like, you're a pro basketball player and you're playing in this park for fun. What, God forbid you play basketball for fun. What's happening right now? But it was just a really cool concept. Those two games, I wish they would make NBA and NFL Street again, because they were EA. They have the licensing for it. They could do it. They just, why do you do this to me, EA? Why do you hurt me?
I don't know.
The next two games are, we've already discussed in length, but they are GTA 3 and GTA Vice City. Vice City is my favorite GTA.
Yep. They came out at the same time on Xbox, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very cool. But yeah, I mean, I guess it was so, because it was GTA 3 then was kind of a PS2 exclusive.
Yep. Yeah, and it came out a little bit later on PC and then even later on Xbox, and it came out the same time as Vice City.
That's awesome.
On Xbox. You could buy them in a double pack. That was like the deal. They were like, oh yeah, we put this. It was like about the same time Vice City came out. And they're like, oh, we're also selling GTA 3. Here's a double pack.
The next game mildly upset me, Tyler.
Yeah.
Counter-Strike. It's a PC port, obviously, of an amazing game by Valve.
Mm-hmm.
But and it wasn't this version, I was bamboozled into buying Counter-Strike Go for Xbox 360.
Oh, you goofed, buddy.
I goofed so hard. This game is fun, obviously, but it really doesn't work on console very well. I will say that. It's definitely meant for PC. It's all competitive. I just felt like I was derping. I was just derping everywhere I went when I would try to play CSGO online on Xbox 360. And I can only imagine Counter-Strike for Xbox is the same way, because there's no auto aim. It wants you to be very technical, just like a PC game would. So I think it's a cool thing they release it on console. I don't think anyone should own it.
Yeah, it was not good.
Strong words, but
you can't play it online anymore anyway because all the Xbox Live stuff is offline. Oh yeah, we didn't mention that in the Xbox Live section. All of original Xbox Live games offline. Can't play them.
Can't play them. Sorry about your bad luck, big dogs. But guess what? Probably a lot of them have PC ports that you might still be able to play.
Like Unreal 2, The Awakening, our first game of 2004. The only notable thing about this game, it wasn't a great game, but before it came out, it had this like marketing push, and some magazines were like touting it as this like Halo killer. Like the PC finally has a Halo killer. It wasn't. It was bad.
You mean no one woke up? Everyone stayed asleep and
everyone
played Halo?
stayed asleep and played Halo.
Oh,
it did have one
man.
gun that was like, I hope I'm remembering this correctly, but it was like the reproductive organs of a spider, and you like shot baby spiders at people with it. It's kind of weird.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a cool idea. Shooting spiders. It's like they're trying to be like the gravity gun a little bit. They're trying to do some weird concept guns, you know?
Yeah.
Or the portal gun, if you will. Man, Valve really has the market on crazy cool gun ideas.
Sure do.
Portal gun, gravity gun. No, that's about it.
Yeah.
That weird goo stuff you could shoot in Portal 2. I don't know. That like liquid gel stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
So the
gotta
next
talk
game,
about Halo 2.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So good.
We already kind of touched on it a bit earlier.
Yeah, the Halo 2 map, multiplayer map I remember the most, and I'm pretty sure this was Halo 2, was the giant wheel, right? Mm-hmm. Or was that Halo 3? No, that was Halo 2.
No, Halo 2 it was Zanzibar.
Zanzibar, that's the name of the map. I think they redid it in a game recently, though. They redid it in like Halo 4, I think.
I think so, yeah.
I do like that they redo the maps in Halo games and they change the name of them. Like every Halo game has had an iteration of the original Blood Gulch.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Yeah, me too.
Or was it called Valhalla?
It was Blood Gulch on original Xbox, and then on original Halo, and then on Halo 2 it was called Coagulation, and I can't remember what they called it in Halo 3.
It might have been Valhalla in Halo 3, possibly.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not entirely. I knew there was a map called Valhalla, and I knew it was really cool. I just love that map because it would be the best map to play with your friends if you had like the whole Link thing going on, like a LAN party, like a 16-person LAN party, big team battle. KOTOR 2 in 2004. We've discussed at length. It was a good improvement on KOTOR 1, and the story was just as good, and I stand by it. And it was a great game, and I was so disappointed, actually, that the Old Republic was an MMO.
Oh, yeah, the new one.
I wanted there to be a KOTOR 3. But what's funny is Old Republic came out in 2009, you said, or was announced in 2009, so probably 2010.
Yeah, I think 2010 is right.
I was on the road and I did a show in the South. Story time, everybody. And I did a show at a game bar that had board games, but it also had consoles everywhere hooked up. And it was cool because it didn't really charge you to play the consoles. You could just hang out and play the consoles. It was really trying to get people in on their food because it was a restaurant too, essentially. And the food was pretty good. But I remember seeing a guy in end of 2015, fall 2015, still very into the Old Republic, like playing the Old Republic. He had all sorts of stuff. He was clearly in like a guild or whatever they call it in that game. And he was super into it. And I'm like, hey, if you have a MMO that has a life cycle of 5 years, I feel like you're doing pretty good. Like, I don't know what it's like now, but it's pretty good that guy, and he was actually really cool. He was like a Sith guy. He was all Darth Mauled out. I kind of started talking to him about it because I'm like, dude, and it really kind of made me want to try the game, but I'm really glad I stopped myself. I controlled myself.
Yeah, it is free to play now too, so.
Oh, it is? Oh, we can just get up to level 10 or whatever and then be stopped.
Yep.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, and like sprinting is, I think, a paywall. It's kind of weird.
Sprinting is a paywall?
It's something like that. I don't know. It's off topic.
But I'm just born to run. Okay, next game. I love this game. Did you play this game, Tyler?
Not very much, so you should talk about it.
Fable. The original Fable. I got this game kind of on a whim. I didn't know much about it. I just knew it was fantasy. And the game itself is pretty linear, but you're essentially like training to be a hero, if that makes sense. You're like learning to be a hero, but the game also has a morality system. And the morality system was if you were good, your guy's face would brighten up. You'd have like this kind of beautiful like lit aura around you. And if you were bad, slowly the guy would get worse and worse as you played. Like you would get devil horns if you were really evil. Like you'd lose your hair and the horns would like come out of your forehead. It was really, it was like it's kind of like a linear Elder Scrolls game, but that's like very much in the world of fairy tale. Like it was trying to tell a story, and it did a really good job. I remember you would go back to this like central hub area of essentially like the school where you were trained to be a hero, and that's where you would like mess with your guy and you'd get new missions and stuff. But it was a great game. I really liked this game a lot, and I kind of am excited because I think they're making a new one.
Oh, cool.
That's the rumor. The rumor is they're announcing a new Fable.
I know they canceled one like a
E3
year or two ago.
Yeah, I think that might be what it is they're bringing it back again. I don't know. We should talk about gaming cancellations is really interesting to me because there's that Star Wars game 1313 that was canceled that I still thought would be that's a whole nother history thing. I get off topic, Tyler. You know how I do.
That's all right. We can move on to 2005 with Doom 3, another PC port. Very good PC port to Xbox.
This is survival horror, right?
Yeah,
Doom,
it was a
Doom
little
3?
bit slower than other Doom games, and like it had more like monsters popping out of closets and stuff at you, like real jump scary. But yeah, it's notable to me just for being a PC port. Like the game wasn't on PS2 or GameCube. It had some of the levels were a little bit shortened. It did have co-op, but you had to system link to play the co-op. So I remember linking up with my buddy one time. I had like brought my Xbox over and we linked up to play the co-op on it. It was pretty fun. But yeah, it was Doom 3. That's its own kind of deal. Unreal Championship 2 is the next game. Unreal Championship 2: The Leandri Conflict, which was its own game.
Unreal Championship different than Unreal, right?
Yes. Well, made by the same company. So I guess there's sort of a TLDR on the history of Unreal. So Unreal was like a game that came out in like kind of around the same time as Half-Life. And then it kind of had a multiplayer mode, but then Epic, creators of Fortnite, Epic made Unreal. They came out with Unreal Tournament, which was like a multiplayer focused version of like the Unreal engine and also like some of the weapons, and like kind of took place in the same universe. So Unreal 2 is the sequel to that first game, and then Unreal Tournament 2003, 2004, sequels to the tournament. They're technically in the same universe, but like still pretty unrelated games. But Unreal Championship 2 was a direct sequel to Unreal Championship, and it doesn't have a good like PC analog. It was like kind of its own deal, which was kind of neat, I thought. It wasn't very good, but it was kind of its own thing. The last game of 2005, also a PC port, Xbox exclusive PC port, Half-Life 2, which is, I mean, I could talk
Amazing
forever about Half-Life. That's a game for
That's
a whole,
a whole new thing. We could do just a 20-minute ending on all the rumors about Half-Life 3, probably.
Yeah, we could.
Over the years.
Yeah, we could talk so much about Half-Life 2. Suffice it to say, if you haven't played Half-Life 2, you're missing out. You really shouldn't. You really should play it. Play it on PC. Don't play it on the original Xbox. The levels are like, they're the same levels, but there's like twice as many loading screens. It's not the best way to play. It runs at like 15 frames per second. It's
Play
also on 360, which is a pretty good way to play it.
Orange box.
Yeah, Orange Box. But just play it on your PC. It's like Valve is always giving it away, so just play it on your PC.
Play it on PC and then get really scared when you get to Ravenholm like I did.
Yeah, we don't go there anymore. That's the passageway to Ravenholm. So 2006 didn't have a whole lot of, like, because this is after the 360 came out. So 2006 doesn't have a whole lot of like big name sort of releases for the Xbox.
You're telling me I have never heard of these 3 games.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you why. These 3 games that I put on the list for 2006 are all related to each other. They are called Pocket Bike Racer, Big Bumpin', and Sneak King. And they are all related because they were all sold for $5 at Burger King, and they all have like, they're all Burger King themed. I have all 3 of them.
What? I wasn't into it, and now I'm very into it.
Pocket Bike Racer?
100% in.
Pocket Bike Racer is like a racing game with like small motorcycles. Big Bumpin' was like a bumper cars kind of thing. I never really played it, but Sneak King was actually pretty fun. You played as the king, the Burger King. You remember that series of ads of like the creepy king guy in 2006? So you sneak around kind of Metal Gear Solid style, and then what you're supposed to do is sneak up on people and then present them with a burger in like a flourish. And that was the term that they used. And like the better the flourish you had, the more points you got. So you like have to surprise people with various Burger King items. It was actually pretty fun.
Creeped out if I was just sitting on a bench and then a man dressed up as the Burger King surprised me with. I would be scared and then happy. I guess I should say.
There is kind of a technical cool thing about these games that I don't think is on any other game. These games they're Xbox 360 games that also play on your original Xbox. And I don't mean in the like, oh yeah, you can play original Xbox games in backward compatibility on your 360. No, I mean like you got a full Xbox 360 game with 250 gamer score to get in each of these, as well as just it played on your original Xbox too. Like that's neat on the same disc.
So it was forwards compatible.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to put it. Yeah.
I guess. I mean, that kind of works for me. Okay.
And anyway, I thought it was neat that they could have both versions of the game on one disc. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
all right, 2008, and the last game manufactured for the OG Xbox, Madden 09.
Yep. And at this
Madden
point,
09,
they were just releasing them because why not?
It makes sense. I mean, they put out a new Madden every year, and this was probably the one that EA was like, oh, well, we're supporting it on this thing, and then never again.
Yeah.
Bye, original Xbox.
It's one thing that we'll always find with like a couple of the more recent systems of the last game is these kind of sports games. I think the last game made for the PS2, I don't know, it must be, I think this was worldwide, was FIFA 14.
14?
They kept making it every year for the PS2.
My goodness, that's
after
really
the PS4
nice of FIFA.
was out.
That's super. I want to meet the person that was like, I have bought the new FIFA every year since the first FIFA for PlayStation 2, and I am picking up 14. And then they're like, PS2. Well, I guess I got to get a PS3, and then work their way through. They're just always behind, but they're playing FIFA, and that's all that they love. That's what I like.
Yeah.
That's what I love about video games.
I think that a big reason FIFA was still being manufactured is the PS2 stayed really strong in Brazil for some reason. I think it was just a combination of being cheap and like it was kind of harder to get, like the way the laws worked there was like harder to get those other consoles. Like they think they had some restrictions that like didn't apply to the PS2 because they had already been grandfathered in or something like that. So Netflix also released a disc to watch Netflix stuff on your PS2 in Brazil, unrelated to Xbox. But I just think that's interesting.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the last game that was ever made for the original Xbox. By the end of 2005, the Xbox had been succeeded by the Xbox 360. Because of a disagreement with NVIDIA, the company that made the GPUs and some other chips inside the original Xbox, Microsoft opted not to have a long tail of supporting both machines, and they cut off hardware sales pretty quickly after the Xbox 360 came out because NVIDIA was like trying to get more money out of them. That's why the 360 does not use NVIDIA chips. The Xbox One does not use NVIDIA chips. Like they were like, oh, give us more money, Microsoft, for reasons. And Microsoft was like, nope. So
like, bye.
That's the story there. Yep.
I remember going to Best Buy. I believe it was like a year. It was the Christmas after the 360 came out. And I went with my mom, and I walk in, and there's like a big old pile of 360s, and it's like, ooh, Xbox 360. And then over there was like a small pile of original Xboxes, and I'm like, oh, man.
So sad.
I love you so much, original Xbox. You were so good to me.
Yeah.
But that's the episode for now. We're going to jump in. This comes out on the 31st of December, so a week from today. We will be doing our first one on the GameCube.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So excited for that. To get into GameCube. That might be a two-parter as well. Not entirely sure. The first part of this episode, you'll notice this one was very long, much longer than the last one, but that's because the holidays are rough, people. Okay, we're trying to make it work. it's pretty hard. And I don't know about Tyler, but it's been just craziness with travel and everything, and you're going home for the holidays. So thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for listening. As always, I am going to put the sources for our whole Xbox history thing in the description of this very episode. But I will tell you, we did use Wikipedia, but we obviously looked at our sources, and then there was a couple really good articles that kind of summed up the history of the Xbox and then delved really deep into the development of the initial Xbox. So that's what we used. I'll put them all up there. You can look at them. It's great. I bet you could even find them if you did the fun Google thing, you know, on the internet. But Tyler, what you been playing?
Oh, man. It hasn't changed a whole lot from last week. Still playing Destiny. I do plan to get back into Pokemon Go and Diablo 3 on the Switch because I'm leaving to go back home soon, and so I won't have all of my many game systems here. I did send a PC up to Washington with my girlfriend. She left beforehand, so I will be able to play Destiny console style. I'm going to hook it up to a TV and play with a controller, I think. But I'll be able to do that from home. Yeah.
Then you and I can do some bounties together.
Yeah. So that's kind of the plan, is to sort of keep up on my Destiny chores and then play Pokemon Let's Go, some Diablo 3. I might pick up Smash Bros. Depending on if I get peer pressured into it.
Dude, this is like killing me right now. I want to Switch so bad. I can't even describe. I haven't felt this way about wanting a console in so long.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. There's Pokemon Let's Go. There's Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. There's Mario Kart. There's Breath of the Wild, which I feel like is an amazing game that everyone's played but me. You know?
Yeah, it's
like,
great.
I really... Oh, and Super Mario Odyssey.
Yep.
Which I actually watched my friend play the ending of, because I was hanging out in Spokane and he was playing the end of it. And I was still just like, I'd still play through this whole game, even though I know the ending. I want to play this game so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Just the fact that you got Cappy. Oh, man.
Yeah. It's so fun.
They're the Batman and Robin of 2018. Mario
That's
and
right.
Cappy. Easily.
Yep.
Also, I found out something for me, what I've been playing, because I was on the road a lot. I've been gone pretty much almost the entire 2 weeks, and I'm back now, and I'm really excited for a little break. But I was in Spokane at my friend's house, and he was playing Rocket League on Xbox, and I learned that I could jump in on his Rocket League and log into my Xbox gamer tag there, and we could talk to our friends and play split screen online.
On Switch?
So it was like, I just jumped in pretty, I didn't know I could do that like that seamlessly. It was really easy. And so also when I mean, this is just me being a achievement person, but the minute I popped onto his game, because he had done all this more stuff than I had done, like I got like 5 achievements, and it was really bad.
Nice.
But it was really fun. It was like kind of what we played at night when I would get back from shows late at night. We would just play Rocket League with people, and that game still amazing, still holds up. It's an amazing, fun game.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Rocket League. Best $20 I've spent in a long time, Rocket League.
Yep.
But with that, that's the episode for the day. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at SneakerElf with an ELPH. Don't forget that ELPH, everybody. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can find me at Mecoletta. That's MECOLETTA. And you can also find us at Codex History Podcast at gmail.com. We're there. we're doing it. We're just looking at that email once a week, you know? We're on it. And then also, you can rate and review and subscribe to us on your podcasting platform of choice. I made a boo-boo last episode. My phone was just acting weird. iTunes did not delete our ratings. It was just a weird bug that was going on, and I didn't really know what was going on, and my phone is old, and I apologize to everybody. But so that one person that rated us to 12, I don't know who you are, but thank you so much for doing that. That means the world to us. We don't really advertise this show. We're just two dudes that like to nerd out about video games once a week, and we're learning. Oh man, isn't learning fun, Tyler?
Sure is.
The more you know, Rainbow just popped up behind me in my room. This is
weird.
crazy.
I saw it. That was weird.
Really, really weird. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Podaholics Comedy Network presentation. Podaholics.com